So Peter Schiff, he's saying that this 2020 Wall Street bailout, this signals to him that the federal government has gone ahead and doubled down, and they're all about quantitative easing. Whenever there's an economic problem, just print up a bunch of money. This is infinite qualitative easing time. Qualitative easing, just print up as much money as you can. Infinite qualitative easing. We're in a recession right now, and we're saying that just print up a bunch of money and give it to who? We're going to give the cheese and the trap, the $1,200 to the American people, but the bulk of the money is going to go to Wall Street. It's going to go to the Federal Reserve. Now, Alan Greenspan, he doesn't understand credit default swaps and derivatives. Alan Greenspan, this is a former Federal Reserve chairman. He doesn't even understand credit default swaps and derivatives. It's too complicated for him. In 2008, we already had TARP. This is like TARP on crack. In 2008, there's $3.7 trillion of new money created by the Fed. It only cost the American government $700 billion, and I think the American government actually made money. They made like $11 billion off the whole thing, and everybody talks about how great it worked. It, kept the big banks afloat. But what about the poor, the homeless people, and the poor people, and the 80% working paycheck to paycheck and stagnant wages? What about all that? So in 2008, 2009, 3 rounds of qualitative easing was used in the 2008-2009 Great Recession. So they took their, $400, $500 billion, and they created somehow $3.7 trillion of brand new money with all their, magic tricks. They have a whole bunch of money markets, commercial paper, derivatives, credit default swaps, of which Alan Greenspan didn't even know what they were. So if y'all remember 2016, this is, mostly Hillary versus Donald, but Jill Stein was there, Gary Johnson was there. Jill Stein had called for the cancellation of student debt, just like they did with Wall Street in 2008. The debt of Wall Street got canceled through quantitative easing. So it's not exactly the same thing, but there is quantitative easing, there is the printing of money, and you can buy the debt from the students. That could have been, instead of buying the debt from the banks, those toxic assets and the mortgage-backed securities, all those, preferred stock. They also bought preferred stock. Instead of doing that, they could buy the debt from the Department of Education, which holds the $1.3 trillion in student debt for 45 million Americans. So 45 million Americans did what they were supposed to do, went to college, because, that's going to help them out. Now they're saddled with $1.3 trillion in student debt. This is a big bubble, and bubbles just get bigger and bigger until eventually it just pops, and then it resets back to zero. And that's, the free market, the magical free market. So it is, Jill Stein is correct. John Oliver is going to, attack Jill Stein's plan, but Jill Stein was right. John Oliver was wrong. The Federal Reserve could have bought the $1.3 trillion in student debt for 45 million Americans and then forgave it. In fact, John Oliver himself bought medical debt and then forgave it, so John Oliver himself has done this exact same thing. But just thinking about how people attack Jill Stein as if it was the dumbest idea ever. Donald Trump in 2016 had promised to forgive student loan debt after 15 years. Okay, I like that, Donald Trump. How come we haven't seen that? That never happened. Because he's just, saying whatever it is he thinks you want to hear. Canceling student debt would help 45 million Americans. It would increase consuming. It would help the American economy. Hence the $1,200 one-time only stimulus checks, which is going to help with what, 1 month? So John Oliver attacked Jill Stein's plan on quantitative easing. Print up a bunch of money and seep that money into the economy, and then that stimulates the economy. So John Oliver was like, God, Jill Stein, you're so stupid. You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. He was like, God, the whole thing was this one big attack hit piece on Jill Stein. She's so, third party and saying what. So he said her plan was like, ordering the post office to make us energy independent by invading Canada. So it's impractical, it's a terrible idea, and Jill Stein doesn't seem to understand anything about it. Ha ha ha. Yeah, okay, so forgiving student loan debt is like ordering the post office to make us energy independent by invading Canada? That's just ridiculous. It's so stupid. Others shriek, $1.3 trillion, that's going to cause so much inflation. And then that, my friends, is economic chaos. We could have forgive $400 billion per year and take care of 3 years, 3 rounds of qualitative easing, just like they did in 2008. 45 million Americans are helped. Bam! 45 million Americans are now freed up to, be independent. They could, being saddled with debt means you're worse off than somebody that's got nothing at all because you're negative numbers. So John Oliver is a part of the protest industry, just like Stephen Colbert, just like Seth Meyers. Stephen Colbert, he had said, always mocked Donald, but then saw him at the rallies, and then he was like, you know what, maybe I can, and I think they said, hey, Donald, why don't you come on to our shows? So Seth Meyers said that Donald was running as a joke at the, White House press correspondence dinner, and a lot of people say that was the moment Donald says, okay, I'm running for president now. So that's perfect for Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers and John Oliver. Donald Trump is terrible for humanity, but he's great for comedy. Look at what, Colbert and Seth Meyers and John Oliver are doing today. So they got to make money. They're just telling jokes, and they're getting all their corporate subsidies, all that, advertisement money. So that's what they're all about. So, yeah, Donald is terrible for humanity, but great for comedy. So you shouldn't really, put too much stock in these comedians as much as, like, maybe Lee Camp. You should, definitely look into Lee Camp. He's a badass. And then, your trusted journalist, right? People that you trust to tell you the truth. So, ultimately, was Jill Stein right? Jill Stein was absolutely right. Of course, it can be done. Where there's a will, there's a way. All that it would take is a political will to do it. So the political fight is more difficult than the, fight to be able to figure out how to do it. You can do it. It can be done. Qualitative easing can be used to forgive student debt. So right now, we're having to deal with this coronavirus. Donald Trump, we're in a recession. So for the longest time, Donald Trump has been shitting on Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve. Just a few months ago, Donald Trump asked about Jerome Powell. My only question is, who is our bigger enemy, Jay Powell or Chairman Xi? I guess XI, Chairman Xi. Who's our bigger enemy, the leader of China or the leader of the Federal Reserve? That's what Donald had tweeted about Jerome Powell. This is the guy he nominated. Senate confirms. But now he's asking, who's our bigger enemy? The chair of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, or the leader of China, Chairman Xi. Donald also called the Federal Reserve a bunch of boneheads, and we're in a recession right now. So that's why Donald wants to get the economy back on track. Get it the way it was before, by Easter, right? But Donald Trump has been shitting on Jerome Powell for quite some time. Donald J. Trump, Donald Genius Trump. Donald said that Jerome Powell doesn't have any vision at all. So the chairman of the Federal Reserve doesn't have any vision. The Fed is being run by a bunch of boneheads. And Jay Powell, the chairman, is a bigger enemy than China is. So Donald's saying he's disappointed in the Fed. He says the Fed doesn't even know what it's doing. So Jesus Christ, why did we just give them $500 billion? We just gave the Federal Reserve $500. We gave them the lion's share of the $2.2 trillion. Jim Cramer, he said that the Federal Reserve should always stay independent of politics, as if that's how anything works. Is that even possible? Independent of politics? Is that even possible? The Federal Reserve itself is a private corporation. So how's that? It's not even a part of the government. It's not part of the 3 branches. It's a private corporation. How's that in the best interest of America? We can't even audit our own central bank because we don't own the Federal Reserve. The chair is nominated by the press, confirmed by the Senate, but their decisions are their own. So, it's good probably that the U.S. government can't force the Fed to do what they want, but who does tell the Fed what to do? Who does direct the Fed to make good decisions? Who are these people? This old Jerome Powell, he's like a old-ass Republican, old-ass Catholic, I think he's a Jesuit. I mean, who is this guy? And, at one point in time, Donald thought he was a bigger enemy than China was. So, the Federal Reserve, it should be a part of the government. The chair, it should be democratic, so the chair should be voted on by the American people, and there should be yearly audits. We should definitely have the Federal Reserve open their books up. $500 billion, where's all this money going? It's a good thing. Did we get we didn't even get any oversight. So that's what happened with the money last time. In 2008, the TARP funds, they gave it to all these different banks, and people assume, this amount and that amount, but they couldn't keep track of all the money that was spent and made. And so, the financial industry was propped up in 2008. The financial industry is being propped up again, too big to fail. I thought capitalism is just, some sink, some swim, dog-eat-dog capitalism. They failed, so they sink. Sayonara, motherfucker. You're not going to, the government doesn't bail out any of the small businesses. Government doesn't bail out the working class. Now they're going to bail out the financial industry. The financial industry got the lion's share. There's a recession, another great recession that's happening right now. If you look at the market, the Dow Jones is just taking a steep nosedive straight down. And so they're trying to, stave this oncoming avalanche of recession, from coming. But I don't think you could stop an avalanche. You have to let it come. And, I think ultimately capitalism says crash and burn. So these big-ass companies want to overextend, and they take all these damn loans, and fuck them. I mean, if the Federal Reserve is a private corporation, then in the free market, the Federal Reserve should sink just like the rest of us, just like the big banks, the AIGs and the Morgan Stanleys and the Bank of Americas and the, what have you. So they're all private corporations. They're just trying to make a shit ton of money for themselves and for their shareholders, and they don't give a shit about what's best in the public interest. So this is another major big Wall Street motherfucking bailout. And have we all agreed that this is the financial system that we want? Do we agree that this is a very complicated system? And I think it's complicated intentionally, like the Electoral College, to make you think you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So don't even, bother looking at this stuff. Don't even bother questioning these things, and questioning authority and figuring things out for yourself. Don't even bother having an independent mind. So the Federal Reserve should have audits. The chair should be voted on by the American people. Donald doesn't have any confidence in Jerome Powell for the last few months, right? He's saying that Jerome Powell is disappointed. They don't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of boneheads. He's the enemy of the people. Now Jerome Powell's $500 billion. And Donald had actually, nominated him before. We're in a recession right now, trying to get the economy back on track. So we're going to give $500 billion to the Federal Reserve, to the enemy of the people. We're going to give $500 billion to the Federal. Maybe they're the one that brought this shit. They wouldn't cut the interest rates. Donald is just for months just assailing the Fed. Basically, he's got a bunch of policies he wants them to pass. He's saying that the whole world is getting all these cheap money, cheap currency, tactics and shit, and the Fed is just moving as slow as molasses. So Donald's been assailing the Fed. And maybe just trying to get them on track. Maybe they got their $500 billion now. Maybe they could bury the hatchet. Or maybe Jay Powell is a bigger enemy to the American people than Chairman Xi. Maybe Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve is a bigger enemy to the American people than China is. I mean, China, manipulates their currencies and whatnot, but they're manipulating our currencies. And they're doing it, with these magic tricks to make sure that the banks have all the liquidity in the world. So they do all these magic tricks and the social spending, socialism for the corporations and banks and the Federal Reserve and the elite. And the 1%, they get socialism. We get, a pittance. Here's a one-time only $1,200 check. Now shut the fuck up and let the banks take control of the U.S. economy. So that means there's going to be a mortgage squeeze. They're going to squeeze people on their mortgages. The bank's got to get their shit together, so they're going to have to, call up on their debt. You need to pay up, then we're going to take your assets. And now they have all the money in the world to be able to pay all the lawyers to, make sure they can foreclose on your ass. They didn't lend any more money. They got their shit together, but they didn't do it by lending to the American people. The money didn't get out to the American people. It was only to a select few. 8 major banks were helped out. Lehman Brothers were allowed to sink in. Fuck the Lehman Brothers. Who knows why? Why fuck that's the sacrificial lamb, right? That's the scapegoat. Let Lehman Brothers fail and say it was all them, and then everybody else get their bailout, but not the Lehman. Why didn't the Lehman Brothers get their bailout? So yeah, I don't have much confidence with the Federal Reserve to begin with. And who the fuck is this Jerome Powell? And the president is saying he's the enemy of the people. And then this all comes from John Oliver just saying, you know, basically, hey, look at Jill Stein. He wanted to punch down. Hey, look at the powerless. She's actually encouraging people. She's saying, hey, let's give the American students a chance. Germany can offer free college to Americans, but we can't offer free college to ourselves. And it is a big, major bubble. And, you know, we're going to wait for that bubble to pop and then just, give billions of dollars to the financial industry again? I mean, Jesus Christ, the money of the first TARP funds should have gone straight to the peoples who were being foreclosed on. 5 million, 3 million people were foreclosed on in 2008. 3 million. 3 million have filed for unemployment insurance. So that's major. That's major. And you're going to tell me that we can give $2.2 trillion. We can pass a spending bill, $2.2 trillion. We can give $700 billion worth of loans to the Fed, and then they can buy toxic assets and preferred stock and mortgage-backed assets to get their shit together. We can give all this money to the financial industry. But we can't give $1.3 trillion to the students. $2.2 trillion. $700 billion, we can give billions and trillions, and then the $500 billion that the Fed got this time, they say is worth $4.5 trillion because of their accounting tricks and financial tricks. So they do their financial accounting magic tricks, and they turn $500 billion to $4.5 trillion. And people are going to sit there and say that $1.3 trillion was the problem. $1.3 trillion was the problem. Meanwhile, we're going to give $4.5 trillion to Wall Street today. Anybody asking how we're going to pay for that? Anybody saying, guys, y'all don't know what the hell you're all talking about? Is anybody even giving scrutiny to Jerome Powell, except for, you know, our douchebag of a president who now says it's not a hoax, the coronavirus is not a hoax? Mike Pence was leading the damn thing. Mike Pence, who calls his wife mother. Mike Pence calls his wife mother. He said smoking isn't bad for you. He didn't believe in the science that said smoking was bad for you. Just, you know, for cancer, just prayed away. The HIV outbreak happened in Indiana under Mike Pence's watch. That's the person that we're going to put in charge of the coronavirus. So, yeah, Donald has mishandled it, and he didn't call it quick enough, and now it's here, and now we have to deal with the fucking thing, right? We can try to flatten the curve or what have you, but millions of people are going to die. And it is Donald's fault. He's not going to take the blame, right? But he did blame the Democrats for trying to weaponize it. He also said that Wall Street had crashed the same day Bernie got elected with one of those elections, saying it was the Democrats. But it wasn't. It was him. It was him all along.